Hello, hi. My name is Angelo Lopez. I am a Filipino American political cartoonist based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I have the honor and pleasure today to speak to two wonderful political cartoonists. One of them is Emanuele Del Rosso, an Italian political cartoonist, and the other is Stellina Chen, a Taiwan political cartoonist. So, both of them are in the cartoon movement and both of them are in cartooning for peace. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you both. So good afternoon, Emmanuel, or good morning, Emmanuel, right? And good eve or good afternoon, Stellina.
Yeah,
Thanks a
that's right.
lot.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for the invite as well.
Okay. So thank you both and stuff. And so Stellina, since we're talking and stuff, you just recently released a graphic novel, right? And stuff. How was that like?
Exactly called a graphic novel. Novel entails that there's a lot of words inside, but actually, it's in this format that's usually used to be popular in China. It's called 连环画. And it's one frame, one page, and with just one line of text beneath the image, which means that there's like around 100 images, and not all the pages have text. So it's more like I mean, I would call it a comic book, not exactly graphic novel. I know it's kind of hard to tell the difference, and but like French, they have a lot of different genre to describe all those
Uh,
comic books. So I first released it in France last October
uh-huh.
with this French publication, and it's called Dans la cour des grands, which means like in the big league. So I put basically all the world leaders in the school, and they're like children playing with each other, but of course, like in the same time showing the relations between each country. And I think the first time I talked about this with you, Emma, was at your place, and I just
Mhm.
met with the publisher, and I think I even told you like I had two ideas, and you were like, "Oh yeah, I like the one in school better."
Yeah, I
Oh, so
remember.
Emmanuel, he had an influence on your book.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it an influence, maybe,
He
but
preferred that idea, right?
I'm asked to be, like I am happy to be asked feedback or my opinion. Well, I'm a cartoonist, so of course I like
Uh-huh.
to deliver my opinion
Yeah.
anytime I can. But it was I remember that conversation, and I remember that it was really interesting as an idea because it just brings the topic to a level of simplicity as well, so that
uh,
people can also be like, oh, this is the dynamics. But Stelina, I didn't know. Sorry, I don't want to like hijack the questions, but I have a question about the format because I think it's really interesting.
yeah.
This image plus commentary at the bottom. Is it a typical Chinese thing, Stelina?
It was started in 1920s, and then it got popular around 1940s, 1950s, and then in 1980s, the Communist Party, the government, the Chinese government, they sort of take it back and use it as propaganda because
Uh,
it's easy to understand, and like it's one image with one text is it's really good for propaganda. So they started to use it to promote their ideology and communism, and every women you should have harmony in your family, one child policy and all that. So they use this kind of comic book, and it's easy to carry because it's like a pocket size.
uh,
uh and I remember I was talking to I was having a talk in the high school in France, and the first reaction that they gave us, me and my editor, it was like it's easy to read, so it's like really easy to consume. Although it's like about international relations, it's politics. It's not something that children might want to, might not be interested like at first sight, but like they were like, oh yeah, it's interesting to see, easy to read, and all that.
okay. I'm curious. How did you like that form of political commentary as opposed to like, your usual single panel cartoon?
Actually, it's quite similar because, like, if you really think about it, it's like you put together 100 press cartoons, single panel press cartoon, together, but just with the story that put them all together. But when I draw like each page is still like the mindset of how I draw a cartoon. You know, like I have only one image to tell a story, and I have to complete everything in one image instead of like a traditional comic book that you have several divisions, several we call it vignettes in one page. So I mean, if you think about it, it's in the sense of like it's like press cartoon, but all together in one book.
Oh, okay. Okay. Was it fun or
Yeah,
was it fun
it
or
was fun, but it was also painful. Like
was it
you know,
painful?
because I think Emma, yeah, my our working time usually it's really compressed. Like you have 3 4 hours, you do a cartoon, but for a comic book, it's like I spend month, like 6 months, uh, to think of a a story and the text and everything, the plot, because each details you have to think of something to correspond to. You know, like the Middle East, U.S. and China in the Middle East, or like the Indo-Pacific relations. So like each scene there is something behind to support
Mm.
the scenario.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Well, I'm glad you had fun.
Yeah.
You had fun in your pain.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm curious now. For both of you, you both are in countries that are facing authoritarian threats right now, right? So I just wanted to ask for Emmanuel, what's it been like dealing with Giorgia Meloni? And for you, Stellina, what's it been like dealing with mainland China? And I guess since this is recent, what are your thoughts on the recent Taiwan elections? I don't know who wants to go first. So.
Maybe I can go.
Emma, you go first.
Well, I live in the Netherlands, which is
Oh,
still
okay.
gonna be very soon an authoritarian regime. So it's now it's starting to feel remarkably like Italy because the last elections in the Netherlands there was a big front of very right-wing voters, and this guy Geert Wilders, which is the leader of this right-wing party, got 30% of the votes. And in the Netherlands, the government is formed by coalition all the time. So the other parties are forced to work with the Geert Wilders PVV. So that's the Party of Liberty, Partij van Vrijheid, if my Dutch assists me. So I think I can answer about Italy, but it also applies to the Netherlands.
Okay.
Because of course I follow the Italian news, and my family is in Italy.
Yeah.
Um, it's just a slow death, like that's the sensation. There's like I think there's a documentary with Maria Ressa, which is this Nobel Prize winner, and
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
founded. She's actually is she in the Philippines? Yeah, she is a
She's in the
wrestler.
Philippines.
There's like
Yeah. I follow
right.
her a lot.
So the documentary about her is called A Thousand Cuts,
Yeah.
and it's about like this slow death of like tiny cuts, that slowly bleed you out, but it's just a slow process. And it's the same thing, or if you want, it's the same as the frog in the boiling water. The boy is very slow, and the frog is not able to understand when the water is actually killing it.
Yeah.
So you witness tiny episodes of racism or fascism or homophobia or Islamophobia, and they all add up one to the other.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to point the moment. There's no moment in which you're like, oh my God, especially for Italy, the right wing grew over the last, I don't know, 3 decades, I think, like it started with Berlusconi in the 90s, and then it's like overlapping with capitalism and then populism. And
Yeah.
then drawing about it is also very difficult because you can draw about one single episode, but there is one per week in Italy, especially. There's corruption one week, and then there is, and then they all look kind of the same. And Italy, as it's an artistic country, and there's many great cartoonists, but it's not a country where there is a space for cartoonists in the media as much as in the Netherlands.
Uh,
I think press freedom wise, the Netherlands like fourth in the world in the ranking,
yeah.
and Italy could be like after Jamaica or something, after like countries that really have political problems that are bigger than the ones that Italy has, but the press freedom is not there.
Yeah.
So like cartoonists can get sued by the government, by people associated with the government.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, and also it's difficult to look at it from the outside because you just see how things are going, and it gets like it's very sad, you know. So all things considered, the Netherlands is still several steps, like you say, like before what Italy experienced, and in a different way.
Yeah.
But also here, like there's when the right wing wins at the government, then all the people that have right wing ideas feel way more entitled to express them more openly, you know. So then
Yeah.
you're gonna get way more hatred in general
Yeah.
as a result of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Have you felt that in a personal level though? In America, I used to have conservative friends, and I noticed a change and stuff. Is that part of what you're talking about too? Is that when right wing parties win, people who are your friends, they start acting different?
I mean, I think I selected my friends well enough that they really don't care where I'm from. Also, most of my friends are cartoonists, and we all share the same kind of views, you know.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
okay.
but I think it's a general, yeah, no, I live in a bubble, like that's what it is. But and I'm also married with a Dutch woman, so
Oh,
like I feel
okay.
like I got this connect, and I'm a very tall Italian, so I also belong in the Netherlands, you know, because I'm tall, I'm taller than the most of Dutch people as well.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it's a feeling you have, you know, and then you know that in some areas, not in Amsterdam, I live in Amsterdam, not in Amsterdam, but in other areas that there is a relevant proportion of the population that actually voted for a party that is openly against migrants. And I
Yeah.
am an economical migrant because I left Italy because I couldn't find a job in 2014,
Yeah.
you know. And but I'm not like what is the part of the population that has the real problems. It's actually Dutch people that are actually third generation Dutch people from migrants from like Northern Africa or Middle East, Turkey, and it's just about the color of the skin, really, you
No.
know. Like it's this basic like blonde people on one side and like Middle Eastern and Northern African people on the other side. They're both Dutch,
Yeah.
excuse me, um, but over time, yeah, there is a divide there, and so they perceive it way more, I bet, you know. But I'm still on the Caucasian side, you know. So yeah, there is preconceptions about being Southern European
Oh.
because we are like Latin Europe, you know, and they think they're just lazy and coming and stealing their wives with their women, that which I did, by the way, so that's kind of true. But the rest is like,
So you
yeah,
actually fulfill that stereotype.
yes, I did.
Well, okay, if I see an Italian, I will try to forget your example. Well, what about you, Stellina?
Actually, I just want to add a question for Emma, that because I know you had a new deal with the Italian newspaper. Like I'm just regarding press freedom, like what you said earlier. So like how did you start that? Like, do you have difficulty when you proposed to them, they were like, we don't want to do that, or what was your experience?
Well, the trick is being paid very low, and then you can get anywhere.
Yeah.
But no, apart from that, it's I'm actually really really grateful because it's rare to become a staff cartoonist, and I kind of am because I have a contract with them,
Yeah.
which is really rare. I just so in 20, like what was it, last year I was published on Charlie Hebdo in the number against the how you call them, like, well, it was against the Iranian government, the religious authorities, the mullahs in Iran. So it
Yeah.
was the whole thing of like women and Masha Amini being killed and so on in Iran. So they made a number about it, and I was published in Charlie Hebdo. Then that in Italy was news that there were two Italian cartoonists that were published in a number of Charlie Hebdo, because then the Iranian government expressed, well, their resentment, you know, and they basically threatened against Charlie Hebdo to like on like for repercussions on them. So I got interviewed by this newspaper that's from my region, and then they saw the cartoons and they were like, "Oh my God, they're really good." And I'm like, "You know that you could publish them if you want." And then basically that's how it started. They were like, "Oh, maybe we should." So I have a weekly slot on Saturdays, and I send them what I produce during the week. So it's not exclusive. That's why the price is low, because the cartoon can go on other newspapers as well. And what I do is simply maybe I translate the text in the cartoon in Italian, and they pick one. So they send them 2 to 3 I produce per week, and I send them the cartoons, and they tend to pick like the most like safe cartoon, let's say, you know. So it's still something that you have to work with what they can let you do, you know. So I definitely, and I do international cartoons with them. They have a slot on Sunday for local satire instead, but it's really, yeah, I mean, you go very easy on the political side, and with the international ones they are a tiny bit more safe, because it's a look on the outside of the region and of the country most of the times. So it's good for their audience, I think, but then it's like in terms of political discussion on topics that are very important in the region, that's not that, you know. So that's maybe why it could go, because it's really difficult to do with cartoons in Italy, you know.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thanks, Stellina, for asking that. Yeah.
I was just curious,
Oh, no, no. Ask any questions you want and stuff. I'm just here. How is it over there and stuff in Taiwan?
Um, I would say it's a bit different, that although like, Emma and I, Italy and Taiwan, we're both facing these challenges, but like for Taiwan, it's a bit different because what we're facing is from the outside instead of domestically. Because like in Taiwan, press freedom, I would say it's quite good. Like everything that I want to publish, I never had any problems. And you can criticize the government
Mhm.
and criticize the president, uh, the current party.
Uh-huh.
Like I remember in the past, I even like asked my editor. I was like, "Do you think this is okay? Like if I portray?" And he was like, "As long as it's true, like it's not fake news, everything it's fine with us."
Yeah.
So in terms of that, that is quite well. But what we're facing is more like, people are saying like, "Oh, you're Taiwanese and you draw a lot of Xi Jinping, the president of China." If one day China is going to attack Taiwan, is going to take us into their own, we'll become a part of them, then you will be like on the list, or like um you will be the one that they would put in jail, and all this kind of talk. But like personally in Taiwan, or like when I'm in Europe, because I actually kind of operate half in Europe, half in Taiwan. I never really personally met any problem. But it's true that I would not go to China, with all the drawings that I have done. Um, and also like I have a lot of friends who might, work in China, or they have family members in China. And when they have my book, or they have my, like, I used to have bags, and on top of it is like a Xi Jinping's face, with like some stuff. And then they were like, they're not gonna bring it to China because they would check their luggage or suitcase and all that. And they delete everything on their phone that's related to my cartoons
Oh,
before they go to China.
oh.
So
That,
it's
that's
it's
sort
to
of
that
a
extent that they would want to.
oh no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, it's okay. You can ask.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's sort of like a badge of honor in a way and stuff. If you're that important that everybody wants to not associate with you, that shows you, you know, as a Filipino, the Philippines, we're really focused on what's happening with China and with Taiwan. We saw what happened in Hong Kong, and we're really focused because the one thing the Philippines is worried about is getting stuck in the middle of a war, of a conflict between the U.S. and China right now and stuff, and we're having problems with the South China Sea and stuff. So we're really focused on what's happening. What happens in Taiwan is going to affect the Philippines and stuff. So, yeah, you guys, do well because we don't want to get involved. You know? Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Yeah.
yeah. Are you both kind of, I've asked this of other cartoonists and stuff. Are you both kind of scared in a way? I get kind of scared when I hear about the authoritarianism and stuff. Do you get worried? Or are you guys, some cartoonists, they're worried, but they're not scared and stuff. They're kind of grimly determined to use their cartoons to fight back in whatever way they can. Me, I'm kind of a wimp. I'm kind of scared and stuff. But I notice a lot of cartoonists are pretty brave and stuff. How do you feel?
Should I answer first?
Whoever's braver, I guess.
I know, then
Yeah, you
Stellina, you
go
go.
ahead. You take
No,
it.
no, no, come on. No, I mean,
Okay,
from my
so I'll go first
perspective,
then.
it's
Okay.
I mean, Italy and the Netherlands are definitely safe countries for satire. It's true that in Italy you can get arrested, and I mean, hate speech or like hatred messages that you can get them from everywhere. The only brush I had with this was again after the Charlie Hebdo cartoon,
Uh,
because police was at my place in the Netherlands really unexpectedly. So in the evening, they were like, they ring the bell, and then this guy shows up and he's like, I understand you published in a French satirical newspaper. And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, tell me more about it. And then he told me, look, Iran is very dangerous, and like you should be aware that they could reach you here if they want to, So he kind of like brought it down to reality for me. And then he told me, if you see anything weird, um, like let's call this number. And I was like, man, this is Amsterdam, like anything is weird. Like, I don't know, what do you mean weird? Like, I get out of the house and I look around for Muslims, like, come on, like,
oh,
like it's so ridiculous to live like that. So I found it like a tiny bit ridiculous. But I feel like there's a component of like, well, I do my cartoons, and I think I'm pretty like naive about it, and I think, oh, come on, like it's cartoons, and I'm doing it for a good cause. So, but I have never been confronted with like I don't know. I know of people here in the Netherlands that receive like bullets or like death threats in at their house.
yeah,
I don't know what I would do, but I would tell you that it would cost me a lot not to draw. So that's why I think many cartoonists, that you cannot not do that. Like it's like an impulse you have.
yeah.
But then yeah, I know. I also spoke with some excellent cartoonists that told me, well, then you start drawing differently. You start taking other topics. You start avoiding some topics.
Yeah.
Because of course it's scary, especially for the people that are with you, your family and so on. So then you have a responsibility. You bring in this thing on them as well. But I've never been confronted with it to a level of like a serious. Yeah, like after that episode, I would go around, look around me a tiny bit scared for like 2 days, and then I thought I have no clue what like anything unusual means, and yeah, so I just kept on going, and that's it.
Mhm. Okay. I don't want anything bad to happen to you, so I'm glad you're
Well,
safe.
thank you.
How about you, Stellina? I know in Taiwan you feel safe, but is the fact that your friends when they go to China, they don't want they don't want to know that the government to know that they're associated to you. Does that bring up it, or does that make you feel like, oh my, I have some power and stuff that, or what do you feel?
Um, it's not exactly that they like they don't want to bring anything like that has my cartoons on it because they're associating me. They're afraid of that. It's because just simply because it has Xi Jinping's face on it. Anything that's related to China, the flag, even the name, anything that has a bit. I mean, not even cartoon. If it's a photo of somewhere that might have just a tint of like the sense that they think this is this is I don't know, it's just a concept of like it's offend the as a country, as a nation, that China, how great very Chinese. I think it's more of that. And in the custom, they would stop you and they would check your phone, and just tiny as that, they would get away. They would get your phone away. So let alone my cartoons, So me being the cartoonist, that they don't want to be associated with me. They want to get rid of anything that's related to China, or or Xi Jinping's face, or anything that's offensive to China,
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I'm not at all. I don't find it as like an honor or a badge, or that I'm like at the front line of like, not at all. This is the situation that we grew up with, like ever since we grew up, it's always in the back of our mind that China might attack us, and that there's like missiles, there's warnings, there's alert all the time. So I don't find it like that is an honor, or like I'm so heroic that I'm fighting against this regime. Not at all. I'm just I'm basically just doing all the other cartoonists around the world are doing. Like when there is a news, you draw about it, and I get this kind of an extra attention just because I'm Taiwanese. That they see us as a part of them, and so I get this extra layer of care. I mean, if I put it this way.
Oh, okay.
And I don't find it like as heroic at all. But also like I don't the same as Emma, like I never really have any personal confrontation anywhere. I at most I get kind of messages online on social media that they just trash you. A lot of them, they're probably like Chinese, uh like those 50 cents um
Kind of
cyber
troll.
army, all
Yeah.
those bots, yeah, trolls and bots. um but yeah, I mean, apart from that, sure, I mean, I would probably not go to China just to be safe. but but apart from that, like it's so far it's fine. And yes, I do have worries.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
But Selena, I have a question about it, because I feel like maybe the most concrete thing that can happen is that China takes over on Taiwan. But then at that point, would you leave Taiwan? Like, would you just be like, well, maybe it's safer in general to leave and I move to France, let's say, like just because you know that maybe there could be repercussions, maybe not in the short term, but like in the medium term.
This is something that I ask myself all the time, that would I leave or would I stay? And I think like up till that moment I wouldn't know, because actually if they really want to put like people who are politically involved in jail, I mean, there's like a huge list that they would have to put them in jail before me, like all the politicians basically, all the party that's anti, not, I mean, not really anti, but like more pro independence, or they would probably have to put them all in jail, and then I will be like the next one after all of them. So maybe I would not be like in danger, like I wouldn't be like the first wave, but yes, in the long term, also like press freedom wise, probably there will not be a lot of space for me to draw cartoons anymore, because
Mm.
anything I draw wouldn't be published, or if it would be published, it would be published outside of Taiwan. And then once they notice that, there'll probably be repercussion for sure. So actually, at this moment, I don't know, like what I would do. It's something that I would have to decide when it really happens. And because I know, like in Hong Kong, there's so many cartoonists, they left during the national security law when it passed, but there's still a lot of people who stayed. And even though they know they might face something later on, but still they decided to stay. So I wouldn't know.
Okay. Well, thank you. According to my clock, we got 8 minutes for this first video. So let me ask this, yeah, one more thing for you, because since you're going to be leaving in about 8 minutes and stuff, it's just um, I mean, I was asking about the Taiwan election. How do you think that's going to affect? What effect will it have?
A lot of people, they were worried about this election because like it's the first time that we had 8 years Progressive Party, which is the one who's more pro independence. They have 8 years in power, and then usually we have, we always have a change of government after 8 years. So it's two terms. We have 4 years, one term. But this time is the first time that the single party has been in power for over two terms, which means this is the third term. So in a way, it kind of shows that Taiwanese people they are that we don't want them to influence our domestic politics, and that's why they chose to vote for the Democratic Progressive Party. But in the same time, actually, their vote count is not that good.
Oh,
So it's not it's kind of like a 30%, 20%, and something else for the third party. Um, and actually, at this stage, I don't think we can do much, or like our party would affect much, because it kind of all depends on November. I don't know how the election in the United States,
oh, okay.
because it would change a lot. With Trump's and Biden's their policy toward Taiwan and our cross relationship, would affect very differently.
Yeah, okay. We will do our part to try to here in America. I'm a little worried about that too and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's a big unknown and stuff. So, for the Philippines and stuff, we're looking at you guys very closely right now and stuff. But I'm glad you're safe and stuff, and I'm glad you have an option,
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, yeah. I mean, we have 4 minutes and stuff. Do you have anything to add before you want to leave and stuff? Do you want to promote your book? And where do you where should we buy it?
Um, Actually, I have the French version that came out last October. But I mean that you will have to understand French to get the jokes. So,
Oh,
and then I have the Chinese version coming out actually next Monday. But then again, you will have to understand Chinese to understand the joke. So
oh,
it's
okay.
kind of, it's kind of yeah.
Well,
So
you're
then
gonna make a English
both books,
version at
either
some
you buy it in
point.
French.
So do you have to have a bilingual sense of
I,
humor to understand your book, or...
well, I
But
hope
you're
there's
gonna
a
are you gonna make an
publisher,
English version? You need to find another publisher for the English one.
No, actually, I don't own the rights. It's my publisher who owns the rights. So it would depend on if another publisher
Mm,
in America they want to buy from my publisher in
my
France.
goodness.
So they would have to translate from French to English.
Oh, okay.
And but then it would be a bit problematic because all the jokes, it's made in French. It's a custom made, like tailored in French. So all the puns and everything, the joke, their campaign for election, because actually they went to school, and the first day the professor is a Slav, and it's called Monsieur l'ONU, which is called because he's the Mr. United Nations, and he's a Slav, so kind of implicate that the UN, it
Hmm.
has this figure that's above countries, but they can't really do much. So that's why he has this passive Slav figure, and they are having an election for the class president. And so all of them, they have their campaign, and the campaign shows what the country, what their country's policy is like. So, for example, in Italy, Melanie, she's called melon, like a melon in the story, and her policy is like to keep the children from the public school out,
Hmm.
because
Oh, okay.
supposedly that's a private school, and so she kicked
Nice.
out all the public school.
No, I'm just wondering, I think the only I don't really know much about French humor and stuff. I know that Jerry Lewis is considered a comic genius in France and stuff, but I'm wondering, and I'm sure humor is the same all over, right? And stuff. There's certain things that are funny, no matter if it's French or Chinese or American and stuff. So I'm sure some of the book translates well and stuff. So, and you seem like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
funny
yeah.
person, so yeah. So, so I'm glad and stuff. Can you buy it in Amazon?
Yes, you can actually. You can find it on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you, thank you. So,
Well, I can read French actually, so I think yeah, I might give
Yeah,
it
I
a
mean,
try.
oh,
next time I go see you, I'll just bring you one.
That's also nice. So you can sign it as well.
okay. Emmanuel, do you have a French sense of humor though, or
I have no clue. I mean,
you'll find out when
I
you read your book?
I'll find out. Indeed, indeed.
Oh, okay. How do you want to be? Do you want to be called Emmanuel, or how would you
You
want
can
me to
call
call
me Ema.
you? Ema?
Ema is
Okay.
yeah. People tend to mispronounce my name.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so in a way or another, you're not gonna pronounce it right. But Ema is really easy instead. So we
Okay.
could go with that.
Okay. Thank you for coming back and stuff. I'm curious. This is just out of curiosity. How did you get into political cartooning, and who are your cartoonist heroes and heroines?
Um, I think I started doing so. I've always been drawing, like my mother especially has this influence on me because she is artistically very gifted.
Oh,
So since when I was a kid I was drawing a lot, and
yeah.
then of course during the teenage years you just don't draw because you just have like you're concentrated on other things or in general being stupid as a person, and then you go back to it when you grow up. So it was I've been approaching again cartoons, and I was really interested in the New Yorker style. So that was the first
Oh,
thing that I really liked. It was that kind of like subtle cultural humor of the
yeah.
New Yorker. And maybe now they lost it a tiny bit because they do too much like society kind of things related. I don't know. Like they went a tiny bit even more soft, which is maybe too soft to me.
Yeah.
But in 2014, I studied I did a master in journalism here in the Netherlands in Groningen, which is a city in the north, and there basically one or two of the lecturers were interested in in visualizing some of the articles, and then they
Oh,
suggested to the class to actually find political cartoons for that. And then I thought, well, instead of finding a political cartoon, I'm gonna draw it myself.
yeah.
So I drew the cartoon. It was fairly horrible, like technically, and also the idea. But it was literally, yeah. And then the professor was like, "Oh, that's great. I mean, you should keep
Oh,
it up because it's a nice skill to have, and if you like it, it's still like a very reputable kind of journalism."
oh,
So I spent the whole year at that master doing these kind of like tiny articles as well, drawing with this like really wobbly trust tablet. It was horrible. Like it was all wobbly. Like at some point I had to throw it away because it was impossible to use. But that year it was like that. So then after that I really thought, okay, this is something that I love to do.
oh,
And I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And slowly I improved. And I think a couple of years ago I reached the necessary level to be published. And I was lucky that I met the right people, like Ted, for example, especially him with the cartoon movement, that gave me feedback, and it gave me a tiny bit of space to actually put the cartoons on. So that's how it started. But it was really, I think, because of a number of people that were really enthusiastic about the horrible cartoons that I was producing, and they were like, "Oh my god, this is great!" And I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, it is." And I continue.
I think your cartoons are good, but I haven't seen your. Every cartoonist early work is bad.
Yeah,
We
I
and we
know
get
that.
better as we just keep. I think the difference between us and like we just don't give up drawing. And
Yeah, yeah,
if you just
definitely.
keep, the more you draw, the better you get, right?
Yeah, but also there is something to be said about the relative importance of technical skills when you're talking about politics. Because I talked to some cartoonists that, like for example, Rachita Taneja, she's from India,
Oh,
and she founded this series which is called Sanitary Panels,
oh,
and it's stick figures. So she's not a cartoonist, like she says I'm not a cartoonist, but actually she's a cartoonist. And it's an image, it's drawn, and it's a political satire kind of thing, and
yeah.
she has millions of followers. And that's maybe even more important than that a masterfully crafted cartoon that doesn't have the right impact, or like it's a subtle thing, the choice of the topic, the timing, the jokes, and so on. So yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like it took you a while, but eventually you learned the craft, right? The craft of cartooning.
Yeah, I changed my style multiple times. I experimented a lot. I never thought, I always, and I still see it like that. It's a urge that I have. So I want to draw because it's fun. And then all the better if I get published and that brings in some money. But of course, it's like I cannot make a full living only with cartoons. It's going better and better. But I do have um, I'm a freelancer, so I have multiple jobs,
Yeah.
and they are all in journalism and in cartoons. I'm lucky about it because they are all in the same field. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a difficult profession. Like I know the cartoonists that have solid living only with cartoons. I can count them like in maybe one or one and a half, like no more. Yeah.
Yeah. In America, one of the problems we're having is economic. Because
Mm-hmm.
newspapers are dying out, a lot of American editorial cartoonists are losing their jobs and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know,
Yeah, I
um,
know that.
yeah, and stuff. Is European slightly healthier in terms of its editorial cartooning profession, or you know, I,
Uh, no, yeah, please go on.
no. I'm just curious because for Americans, we're not worried about somebody knocking on the door and stuff and taking us away to jail. We're worried
Mm-hmm.
about just losing our jobs because the newspaper, just the budget, and the newspaper is losing readership and stuff. Is
Mm-hmm.
that similar in Europe or no?
Um, I think it depends on the different countries. So it's a tiny bit more, it's different. Like if you move to, well, the Netherlands, I think it's doing pretty good
Yeah.
in terms of number of cartoonists that they bring in the newspapers. I mean, I'm looking around the main newspapers, they have two, three cartoonists. They rotate during the week. So my perception is that things are going fairly okay. It's
Okay.
definitely not like the golden age, it's not like the 70s or so that when you have like one cartoonist that is like taking one slot per day and then they just make a very good salary with that.
Yeah.
So I think the trend though is that they don't hire you, but they hire you as a freelancer,
Uh,
which means that they can get rid of you way faster.
uh,
And then I'm talking about the Netherlands, or also the UK. I've seen things going this way, but as for Italy instead, I mean, it's just like I don't think that there is a real possibility to be like a full-time cartoonist. There you really have like four, I think, full-time cartoonists,
yeah.
and it's just difficult. The thing is this, as opposed to the reality of the fact that there is way more cartoonists, because with social media you can show your things, and to be a cartoonist and to have an impact, you don't need to be in a newspaper anymore.
Yeah.
So you have very good cartoonists that are published not much,
Yeah.
but they have a big following maybe, and so you can, and but that's a really tricky thing, because then you're not protected at all, because you're not a cartoonist, in the sense that no newspaper has your back,
Yeah.
no journalists association has your back, but then you're still putting stuff out there that is highly political, so people could get annoyed, or can threaten you, and then you're alone.
Yeah.
So it's never been so healthy as a craft. But then if you want to call it profession instead, it's struggling like all journalism, like
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
whole the whole industry is not doing well.
Yeah, there was something you mentioned earlier and stuff that I talked to a Filipina cartoonist, and when she used to work in a Philippine newspaper, the newspaper told her to water down her cartoons because they were always
Mm,
worried that Duterte would sue them for libel. And
mm,
so her cartoons were not as strong as she wanted them to be. And you mentioned the
Mhm.
same thing in Italy and stuff about how they worry about the government suing the cartoonists for libel.
Mhm.
But you said that newspapers can protect cartoonists, right? If you're in
Mhm.
social media, does that make you more vulnerable to being sued for libel? Is that one of the things you're worried about, I guess?
I think it can happen.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it would happen to me
Yeah.
because the type of cartoons that I make, and you never say never because it is really a subtle thing. But I don't go heavy on, I don't know, specific people. Like you don't get the situation in which they will be like, oh, this is defamation, for example. And
Oh,
also, my following is not big enough for that. But in Italy, if you're big, people are looking. There's like powerful people, and then you know that you could get into those problems. And yeah, the as a staff cartoonist, and then there is one example. For example, there is this newspaper. It's called Il Fatto Quotidiano, and they have a cartoonist. It's a staff cartoonist, and he made a cartoon that basically got him sued for defamation.
uh,
And the newspaper was with him. So they actually were publishing about it, and then that you have a legal team. That's the one of the newspaper that actually is also working with you.
yeah.
So it makes a difference, because if you're alone instead, then you're gonna have to find yourself a lawyer, and it's very stressful.
And you can get bankrupt.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like those things, like those, they're called, I don't know now the acronym, what it stands for, because it's a long one, but they're called SLAPs. And
Oh,
it's like this, basically, they are like deterrent um, suing from big corporations. They have so much money. So they sue
yeah.
you so much, so many times for so many things that at some point it's going to be impossible for you. You're going to spend all your time
In
dealing with that,
court.
going to the
Yeah.
court, talking to the lawyers, and then even if you win, you spend months on it. So they
Oh,
will ruin your creativity, and it's the same for journalists. So it's the same thing.
okay. So it probably for cartoonists, it's better to focus on issues and not on personalities in a way,
Yeah,
because if you
maybe.
focus on issues, you're
Yeah,
focused
true.
on society problem. You're not, you can't,
Mhm.
an issue can't sue you, right?
True, but then the issue is that if you don't go personal on the specific politician, there's the cartoons lose power, because
Yeah,
the
yeah,
point is also making fun of specific people. That's how you actually kind of like, how do you call it, like bring down to like the whole concept
yeah,
of like the king is naked, like
yeah,
the idea of like making fun. Like, for example, every time I draw about Putin, I
yeah,
think about this thing, and then you can also tell me what you think. But like, you can make a lot of cartoons about Putin, like big and violent with blood everywhere, and then that exemplifies what it is. So the guy is basically a monster, and then you just draw these cartoons like that. But those cartoons, I don't think they disturb him that much,
yeah,
because he's like, you know. But if you draw him in a way that it's really funny,
yeah,
and it puts ridicule on him, that's damaging, because that's what like brings power down instead. It's the
yeah,
same with all the other regimes that we have around. So that stuff is very important, but then that stuff is the one that gets you in trouble,
yeah,
because those things are damaging for their credibility.
yeah, yeah.
And so
I never thought of it that
um
way, but I think you're right. And so, because for American political cartoonists, when I talk to them, a lot of them, one of their jobs is to keep those in power accountable, right? And stuff.
mm,
And if you can make people laugh at them and stuff, that's a really good way of keeping people accountable and stuff. Is
yeah,
because one of the things I think authoritarian leaders try to do is to make you scared of them. But if you
yeah,
can
indeed,
laugh at
indeed,
them and stuff,
exactly,
that takes away some of that fear.
exactly.
Okay. Okay.
So, it's different types of interpretations of what it is to be a cartoonist,
Yeah.
and there are some cartoonists that are very good at actually kind of like creating funny situations that bring this topics to another level, which is also more understandable by the general public. And then there are other types of cartoonists, and I am in the second group, that instead are not that skilled at making things funny, but you instead like show the things as they are on another level. So it's more like analytical kind of thing. So Chen does that thing like that, you know. So it's more common also in the Netherlands to have that second type. But if you work, if you especially if you go, like, I don't know, Eastern Europe, for example, there's a lot of amazing cartoonists, and for the type of governments they have, they really need to also go on the funny side, I feel, because that's really the only way to actually kind of disturb the government. Otherwise, they're like, well, yeah, I am a monster, I'm a criminal, right? So what, you know?
Okay. Well, this sort of leads to the one of the questions I had for you and stuff. You organized the European Cartoon Prize on behalf of the European Press Prize, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
you sort of touched on this, but since you are, organizing that, from your viewpoint, what are you seeing right now in European political cartooning? You mentioned it a little bit, but you may want to mention a little more. And also, what are some of the issues that you and other European cartoonists tackling right now?
Yeah, so it's called European Cartoon Award,
Oh,
and
award. Okay.
yeah, and it was it's a relatively new award, so it's this year 5 year old.
Yeah.
And we accept submissions from cartoonists from everywhere in the world, but they need to be published in Europe.
Oh, okay.
So that is interesting because that means that a lot of cartoonists outside Europe can participate, because European media tend to publish cartoons also by cartoonists that are not European, you know. So it's a nice like you see from who participates. You can see that there is a big interest from European media, especially in France, towards the outside as well. So the topics that are covered are also a lot of international topics. I feel Europe, for how we are, I mean, we are like an old continent, you know, like we are subjected to the pressures of all the other big players, and we are not a big player anymore.
Yeah.
So what happens when you are not a big player is that you start looking outside for what the others are doing. So we are way less than the US centered on ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of international journalism and political attention towards the outside. So the cartoons that are reaching the final stage are most of the times things that are regarding Europe, but also outside. Say, I mean, women's rights. We have the cartoon actually. There was finalists, not this year, but the year before, and it is from Harry Barton, which is a Irish cartoonist. Is great, and the cartoon is about the Roe versus Wade ruling. So that's the abortion bill, and so that's, you know, because the conversation about what happened in the US was very big in Europe as well, because some countries were like, oh yeah, we should also make abortion illegal again, you know, because the US did it. So we are very influenced by what happens in the US.
Yeah.
So the topics you get, it's like that. It's like it's Middle East, it's Northern Africa, it's the conversation about Islam in Europe, conversations about women's rights, workers' rights. The winner of last year was actually about the Qatar World Cup. So it's workers' rights, and from a UK, from a British cartoonist.
Yeah.
So it's very like I like it because if you want to compare it with something that could be done in other big, you know, conglomerates or countries or like federations of states, like in the US, the Pulitzer Prize is, for what I've seen, way more concentrated on the US.
Yeah.
You know, and the same goes for like newspapers. Like I submit to the Washington Post, for example.
Yeah.
But they are less and less publishing guest editorial cartoons from abroad, and the view they want to have is kind of leaning towards the US anyway, you know. So
Yeah.
it's difficult to actually find a space for that in the US. And I think it's a healthy thing what happens in Europe to just
Oh
be
yeah.
like, hey, but
I'm very envious of
what
that
happens
and stuff.
outside, you know?
Yeah. It sounds like you have a much healthier view of the world and a lot more knowledgeable. I think there's an assumption that Europeans just know more about world affairs than Americans and stuff.
I think it's true. I mean, I wouldn't generalize, but I think like if I have to generalize, if I look at the newspapers, I think we are forced as well to look way more around. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because yeah, American cartoons, a few we're pretty envious of the Europeans. You know, we look at you guys and we think I think it's just because American political cartoonists, I think we have great cartoonists. It's just I think every time I go to a convention, everybody's worried about losing their jobs and stuff. And so
Uh-huh.
I think there's a fear. How long can we last as a profession before all become freelancers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, me, I worked full time in a library. I only did
Mhm.
editorial cartoons as a side and stuff. It was never
Yeah.
something that paid the rent and stuff. So for me, and that's sort of like that's sort of become the norm, at least in America.
Mm.
And so, but yeah, I envy the the wide breadth of topics that a European cartoonist or a European can focus on as opposed to an American cartoonist.
Yeah, I think that that is something that gives space to a lot more cartoonists. This said, I do think that local journalism and local cartoons are super important because that's what moves, emotionally the audience way more. Like I told you, like with the Italian newspaper I publish with,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they run cartoons, and I'm like, I really don't know if your audience knows what we're talking about here, because it's really just like, I mean, if I take the average person that could read that newspaper, I really don't think they would follow international news like I do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but at the same time, instead, local satire and local journalism have a stronger impact. But the thing with Europe that's really different from the US or from other big countries that have like one single language, it's that we are really like we are together, but you go from one country to the other, and the difference, and also the fact that we don't speak the same language is
Uh,
incredible. So you still are pretty divided. And that makes it for completely different cultures also when it comes to journalism and cartoons and so on. So
yeah.
it's we talk about European Union, but actually then if you talk about cartoons, it's besides this high level of international cartoonists, then there is a lot of like more on the ground kind of things, which are equally important.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering though. I mean, in Europe and stuff, like um, England and France have great um, traditions of political cartooning and and political satire and stuff. You know, I don't know if Italy has a strong tradition of political satire or if the Netherlands do. I'm wondering if when you're talking countries that have strong traditions of political cartooning are more likely to appreciate how important political cartoons are as opposed I'm
Mhm.
wondering if like cartoons that were once in the East Bloc or or authoritarian countries do they have a like Poland, does Poland have a history of political cartooning or you know
And now it's difficult for me to tell you specifically because I should like for some countries I know more than others, but
yeah,
I do know that Eastern Europe has a really really big tradition of cartooning.
okay, okay,
But the thing is, like, they are also the most difficult area in which to do cartoons, because
yeah,
of the types of governments they have.
yeah,
But I do think that all the countries have quite a good tradition. Then, if you go back enough, those countries are not there. Like Italy, I mean, until the 1860, it was not unified, and it was a completely different place. So it was not Italy, but it was more like three kind of like different areas. One was the Vatican, the other one was belonging to Spain, and the other one to
Yeah.
the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So, but I remember that I've seen early examples of satire. So there is definitely something there, and the Netherlands as well. Like they really have a big tradition here as well. So they have a museum as well for that, which is
Oh,
something
wow.
really particular. Yeah. So there's inside the Museum of Sound and Vision, they have an archive with the cartoons. So it's really big. So I think there is a big tradition. France is definitely the one that has the most famous one.
Yeah.
But in the end, after all, what was brought to the US came from Europe, you know. So and I do think that that thing was also brought, to the US. So yeah, it is definitely a place where you can find early examples pretty much everywhere, I think.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. I know France and England because Daumier,
Oh
Gilray, and
yeah,
all those
yeah,
great,
definitely.
ones and stuff, but I'm not as familiar with the other countries and stuff. But I'm sure they have a great tradition too. Yeah, and stuff. I'm an ignorant American.
Oh yeah, but it's really difficult history to follow. I mean, it should be if somebody would be able to, like some scholar would be able to condense it, in a book that talks about the history of satire, then I
Yeah,
would be really happy
that
to
would be
read it as
wonderful.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna subtly plant that idea in your head so that if you ever have time, maybe you
I
can
should
just
tell
look up.
Ted because he's the one that is in touch more with universities. So
Oh,
that
okay.
would definitely be interesting for him to talk to some scholars and be like, hey, why don't we do some research about it? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I have a quick question for you and stuff. You mentioned that when you first started out, you had a kind of wobbly tablet that,
Hmm.
when you, how do you do your cartoons now?
And now I use an iPad,
Okay. Are you
I
doing,
which is really the standard for many. Yeah,
are you doing Procreate?
yeah, of course. It's
Okay.
very good. I mean, I've been trying many different types of programs as well. So at the beginning, I was using Photoshop,
Oh,
but then it was too much for what I needed to do. I wanted to draw kind of like freehand, Then I had a phase in which I was using Clip Studio
oh,
because Photoshop was too expensive as well. So Clip Studio, you could buy the license for like $80 and then you have it.
oh,
But the
okay.
thing is, at the beginning, I was drawing with the drawing device, was a Wacom tablet,
Yeah.
and then the screen in front. So you draw, but then you see the cartoon going on the screen. So you draw like this, but the cartoon is here.
Oh,
But the thing is, like that way, I had the sensation that there was this kind of like passage from my mind to the drawing device to the screen that was slowing down a tiny bit and getting the level, not allowing me to improve.
oh,
Because you have this connection hand eye in different places, so it's not a natural way of drawing.
yeah.
So I think 2 years ago I just decided, okay, I need to change this, and I bought an iPad only for the cartoons, and I
Oh,
don't use it for anything else. I just draw. So for me it's like my drawing tablet,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then I have to say that changed things a lot, like really. Like I improved way more, and I'm very happy about the iPad as a means for the cartoons.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm glad and stuff. And you probably don't get headaches anymore because you're not.
Exactly. And also the position that I have, and it's more natural. I feel like I do also draw on paper, like I do cross hatching, like
Yeah.
for fun for other things, and it's way more fun because on the laptop you just really stand, and also it's more portable. I can When I
Uh,
travel, I have the iPad. I can draw on the plane, or on the train.
yeah.
I did some cartoons that were published by big newspapers, like in really like ridiculous situations. So like just drawing on the train with like waiting for the breaks in between like different stops. So
Yeah.
yeah. But what about you? How do you draw? Do you do digital
You know,
or?
I'm not. I'm still pen and paper. and then I I
Uh-huh.
I, I do I water down acrylic and I water it down, and then I scan it in the computer, and then I go in
Okay, so
Photoshop, and then I
nice.
I collage it and stuff, and I
Hmm.
clean it up and stuff. So I'm a lot clunkier. It takes me about 2 days and stuff from drawing.
Wow.
Whereas everybody is a lot fast. So that's why I'm a weekly and stuff,
Yeah, of
But
course.
yeah, but one of these days I'm going to try to to get an iPad and a Procreate. It's just I actually I like painting. I like the inking.
Hmm.
I like doing that, but it's a very slow process and stuff. So
I think it's great though. I mean, and then also the hybrid techniques are also really nice. There's many cartoonists that do like, yeah, I mean, they maybe the outline on paper because they are like, there is a thing to be said about the paper, like, I don't know.
yeah,
I think there's something there. I'm just more pragmatic about being fast because I need to produce
yeah,
fast, otherwise I don't have time during the week, and so
yeah.
yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, okay. No, no, one of these days I'll do that too. So
Yeah,
okay.
you should go to Apple shop, and then they have the iPads there, and then you install Procreate and you start drawing. Like to try it without. I mean, really, like they will be like the cheapest way to do that. Instead of like trying to buy something and then maybe you don't like it, you just go there and then you start drawing on the
Oh,
iPad and see how it goes.
oh, okay, okay, okay. Well, we have 7 minutes left
Hmm.
for this video, and so let me just ask you, what do you love about political cartooning, and why are political cartoons important?
Well, I think um, for me, there's a component of drawing that I find really fun. So I
Yeah,
just, and every time I sit and think about the topic, finding the way to express. So what I think is usually, okay, what is the point about this thing? What is my opinion about it? So I try to form an opinion, which also allows me to actually be interested in different topics and be knowledgeable about it. So I need to keep up to date.
yeah,
So it's something that allows me to read about different topics, and it's fun. So I am in my zone when I draw. I'm like, I listen to very loud music, and I'm like singing out loud, which my wife hates, but I do that anyway. And and so
yeah,
you have this liberating moment. It's a creative thing, so you create something from scratch. So it's
yeah,
also really great.
yeah.
And uh, um, and then I do think that, or I do hope, and when I see people telling me, "Oh my God," like like I get positive messages, or people are like, "This
Oh,
cartoon
yeah, yeah,
exactly." I sometimes I got some messages like, "This is exactly what the situation is," like, and people see the cartoon and they think about the topic. So that I think the role is that,
yeah,
as in bringing in front of people an important topic and suggesting a way to see that. So of course it's an editorial cartoon, so it's my opinion, so you can agree or not, but the important thing is the thinking that
yeah,
generates on people.
yeah,
So there is a like in general, cartoons um, partake into the journalistic profession for me. So it's all about kind of like speaking truth to power, you
yeah,
know. So I
yeah,
don't fool myself that I can keep anybody accountable, but
yeah,
it's a different thing speaking truth to power. So portraying a situation and looking like moving the curtain, and be like, come on, like this is like there are hypocrisies into things, Like I
yeah,
did a cartoon about the protests against the far right in Germany,
yeah,
and people love to feel great about these things. I was in this protest against the Nazis, and I'm like, okay, but what about all the Islamophobia in your country?
yeah,
Like if it's people taking the streets and saying like, Muslims, you're welcome. Nobody goes to those kind of meetups, or like
oh,
protests. So I try to kind of like talk about what the real issues are as well, and I think that's the role of editorial cartoons, so showing the
oh,
hypocrisies and the inconsistencies as well.
oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And you do a good job of it too. So, you know.
Thanks. I try. That's a process as well, so I just do my best. That's what it is.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, thank you very much and stuff. I hope you do well and stuff, and that in this up since it's only what February and stuff, the year is still young and stuff. I'm hoping things get better, and yeah, I'm worried and stuff, but I'm hoping for the best, especially as I guess this right-wing government got elected in the Netherlands. I'm hoping for the best for you.
Well, thanks a lot. I think we're fucked, but in general. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to try and do something about it. That's the thing. But it's not a good. It's a good time to be a cartoonist because everything is just completely messed up, and then there's a lot to draw about. But yeah, so it's we try. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
I always think what's good for the editorial cartooning profession tends to be bad for everything else.
Exactly, that's the thing. That's a difficult truth to live with, really.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very
But thanks a
much.
lot for having me. It was really interesting conversation.
Oh,
And
sure.
it's great you're doing this thing. I like this. You should keep it up, really. Like having talks with different cartoonists is great for the cartoonists. It's great for the people. So let me
Uh,
know when the video is out. We're also gonna post it around. I'm gonna post
okay,
it
sure.
around and make sure that people see
Yeah,
um, what we talked about.
yeah. Well, I'm basically doing it because I'm a nerd and stuff. I'm
We're all
sort of a
nerds,
nerdy,
huh? So,
but also because I think from what I've learned and stuff is political cartoonists tend to be very insightful about, you know, they have to be in order to be good at their jobs and stuff. They're very insightful in the political situations in their countries or in their communities and stuff. And so when I talk to them, I'm always impressed by what they have to say.
mhm.
So, you know, I just want to learn and stuff from them and stuff. And you're sort of like heroes to me. You guys are very brave and stuff. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.